Okay, so that seems fine. All right. All right. So anyway, um so I got rid of that last thing, which means I want a new level. Let's just call this lobby, or not lobby, I guess, but office. Module.exports is going to equal data require data.js entities equals player. And right now there are no scripts, but there will be some. Yes, I want you to actually create this file. And similarly, if I jump back over into tiled, I should be able to, I'm going to save this as a new level inside here. We're going to save this as data.js, and I'm just going to like mess with it a little bit. So let's get rid of some of these walls. In fact, let's get rid of most of this. I want something that's like larger. Can I do that? Because I've already resized this map down, right? Yeah. Map properties. Can I set resize map? Can I set this to be... Yeah, don't remove objects outside of the map. What? Can I set this map to be like infinite size and then... Alright, whatever. I'm just gonna set the width to be like 80 tiles. Then. And then I'll auto crop it once I'm done. Like I don't know why I'm putting any effort into this at all. I'm not really gonna do much with this map other than like that you should be able to load it. I'm gonna put the player here. And we're gonna go down to the floor. Can I not? Yes. There we go. Alright, I'm going to save that as data.js. So, okay. I should be able to. If I jump back into code. I should be able to go into main. And I should be able to change my default level to be... Cool. And now, if I go into the debug mode and I replay everything, yes, I'm now in the office. Kind of stutters around a bit, but that's because it's got like so many tiles, probably. Even then, it shouldn't really be stuttering around. I don't like that. There's some weird stuff. All right, well, whatever. I'll worry about this later. Cool. So the question is, can I swap between those levels on the fly? Can I go down to like add like a section in here that's like game setup? Is this planning on like playing music? YouTube is weird sometimes. Why won't YouTube play? Okay, next song. All right. So on player join, I'm going to initialize the game with levels dot intro. But I want to listen to level events, and let's make sure that they're getting actually thrown. Ooh, I didn't think about that. I will add, yeah, I'll add Factorio to the list. I mean, it looks like, holy crud, like YouTube cannot like move between, what is up with you, YouTube? Why are you doing this to me? Why do you make me... It just decides it doesn't want to... What on earth? None of these are loading. No, play the cemetery song. It won't. I guess there's some like... Alright. That's super weird. Alright. I'll leave it at that for right now. And I will add Factorio to the list as well, because that's a great idea. I was actually trying to think, like, what are games that, like, A, are small enough that I know that they're not going to, like, care that I'm reusing their soundtrack, but B, also that, like, have these kind of, like, low fidelity working music. Anyway, what I actually want right now is to look at how levels work. Can I listen for events on the level? No, levels do not emit events. So let's change that first and foremost. Um, I guess I literally just pull in an emitter, basically here. That equals this private. What then? Yeah, what's the problem? It's a return statement. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with returning? Invalid? What? Am I insane? Invalid return? Oh. Like, if you're gonna give me an error on anything, give me an error on the misspelled function, not on the return statement. Cool. So now we can emit events. And one of the things I want to do an update then is I want to do frame.world.on level.load. And I am actually just gonna do a level name here. I also thought, if I'm remembering this, there should be like an orchestrated version of Cave Story soundtrack that's a lot better. Thought there was like a professional version or something. Not like actually professional, but like a fan professional version that a whole bunch of people did. Maybe not. I'll look around for it sometime. I guess I did. This is another thing where it's like, if you have these layers, maybe it doesn't make sense to always... I don't know. Level.on, load level, function, boom. All right, so let's stick this inside of a function, basically, which would be function load, I guess. That should be basically pretty straightforward. I should return the level, not the stop. I mean, I guess that'll work, right? Let's try this again. I mean, it looks like it loads. Also, when was the last time I committed this code? A while ago. Looks like there's a lot of stuff to commit. Stage, 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 stage. Alright, so what changed? What did I do before I ate food? Well, I added basic doors. You can collide with them. They also have triggers attached to them. They're not completely functioning the way they will in the final. What else have I done? I have primitive level loading or level transitions. Untested. I also have added a second map. Cool. I'll push that stuff. Good. I also haven't gotten any emails from GitLab about the entire build breaking, so I'm gonna assume that everything's fine there. And doors open and close for you. Boom. But they won't open and close for you in the final game. Alright, so what I need to test this is I need to add a trigger entity. Let's check this off in the to-do. Let me make sure that I'm approaching this from the right order. I want to make sure that I'm approaching everything from the right direction. Second map is done. It's primitive, but like, who cares? Level transitions mean that I need to add trigger entities. Doors, there's a basic implementation done, but unlocking with a prompt instead. That obviously needs to happen. Yeah. Yep, it's trigger entities next. Where, similar to a door, this is just gonna be almost the exact same code, except even simpler. This is just gonna have a collision, right? Like, this is just gonna be... I need to have code open. I'll look into that probably after today to see if there's some way I can get the windows to auto switch. Now this one, I actually do kind of care about the raw entity code. Like, I care a little bit about template, I think, because this trigger thing that you're building is going to call into a custom listener. Now, that being said, what's the simplest way to do this is for me to actually just say, it's just a data.collision.type equals trigger. And I don't need to add, I actually don't think I need to override the template stuff, because I think that what I have is already generic enough that it'll just work. I think that's the extent of it. I think that's everything I need to do. You can get rid of that. In fact, I don't even think I need collision. Yeah, what do I need collision for? What do I need collision for in here? Oh, I do. Never mind. So this is literally just extending off of entity. And it's basically just a wrapper around a trigger. Alright. So now, we can head back into main.js for the office. We want to also make sure that we load up the trigger entity for this. Well, okay, so I have trigger. What I kind of want is a level end area, right? Like, I don't want to have to make a new script. So let's go one step farther. Now that I have a trigger, which is good, I will want generic triggers. But I also want just like a level end. Level end I already have. Level loader, I guess. We'll call you that. And this will be pretty much exactly the same, except it will extend off of trigger instead. Is that safe to do? Because I'm just going to be calling the constructor dot per. Yeah, that's safe to do, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's safe to do. This dot data dot collision dot on trigger dot start function. This. All right. So this is a generic. This is a generic entity that I'm just going to import into everything. seems decent. Oh. Oh, yeah. So make sure you pass in. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back into tiled. And assuming everything is set up correctly, which it probably is, I'm gonna open up the older data.js. And we're gonna go into entities. We're gonna add a new trigger. That didn't work the way that I wanted it to. All right. We're gonna add a new trigger. This name is going to be load office, or office door, I guess. Its type is that it's a level loader. And we add a custom properties, and we add a level property, and we say that we want to load the office level. Now, I kind of think this is just gonna work. Like, there's always bugs, but like, okay, so something blew up. Why did it blow up? Door is not defined. Oh. Easy thing to fix. All right. But like, other than some minor bugs, I think this is mostly gonna be the system. Okay, so something, what next? Level loader.prototype doesn't exist? What do you mean? Like, I knew that this might be a problem, but it shouldn't. I didn't actually think that it would be a problem. Entities.level loader isn't defined. Oh, because I added it to the wrong one. I need to go to intro, main. Yeah, and this is where it'd be like kind of nice to auto-generate these files, but it's also just like so much of not a big deal that it's kind of hard to justify it. Okay. Now if I refresh this. Okay, that loaded. And go around, I can enter things. Now that's being treated like it's a collidable. Well, that tried to trigger a new level, actually. That tried to trigger a new level. Huh. Now, it blew up because there is no ghost that exists for this level yet. Should be fine, though. I called stop on the level, right? Do I have a way to distinguish levels? Level.load office. Oh, when I emitted that, it still tried to follow through the rest of the way. It still tried to finish the update, which should be fine. Should be fine overall. Let me take a look at the main code again. Oh, no, wrong one. So this is trying to send the ghost, which is null. I don't know why that would suddenly break. What does this do now? Something isn't making the transfer over. Like this update thing, like stop is apparently like not working or something like that. Is all that I can think of. Because it's still transmitting the other level. So we're doing a loop. If that dot running. Yeah. Should be working. I don't understand. What if I just called stop? I'm just gonna call stop first, and I'm just gonna make sure that this loop actually ends. We'll take this one step at a time. Okay. So that did stop. That did stop the level. And so this is an interesting, like, so nothing is updating. That's good. The level stopped updating. Now, why can't I just overwrite the level in place? Would that still cause a problem with the ghost? Let's try this. No, no error there. Great, we're all good. Now we call load, which should be fine. We're building a new level, we're returning it, we're disregarding the old level. As long as the old level isn't getting updated and there's no references, it should just kind of go away. So let's just load the new level, and we won't even call upload. Let's just load it and then like console.log it. Cool. So we've now sent back a new level. And it looks to be fine. Has an update method on it. It doesn't actually look like... Where did the hidden variables go? Where did the hidden variables go? It's like it returned the constructor and not the... Because there should be a whole bunch of... Oh, whatever. Yeah, no, I get it. If I look at the proto for it, then there's a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. So there's a world, there's controller that got added correctly. Everything is serialized, it's running as false. We've got a timeline with an anchor, that's fine. It's literally the same code that gets run before. So now we're gonna call level.loop. I think this is basically boils down to cleanup, actually. I think this basically boils down to cleanup. Alright, cool. So what's the problem, right? Because this is the same code that's happening before. So when, like, the ghost should be getting set. Yeah, it should be fine. Update was applied, like it's good. No problems with update. I don't understand. I don't understand. So this is calling update. I'm grabbing the frame, level.frame, controller.id. Yeah. What's the problem? Alright, let me take a look at the timeline, actually. Cool. Alright, so I should have at least... I have no frames. Huh. I have an anchor, but it's like it called update before anything was added. Why would that be? Why wouldn't my new level not have a world? I don't see what the difference is between this. Unless the controller must be in a different place. So controllers, there is one, right? Yeah. So... did add controller just like not get called? Oh, no it didn't. I need to pass in the controller. Yes, I need to pass in the controller. Yes, I need to pass in the controller. No, I did pass in the controller. I 100% passed in the controller. Yeah, because the controller exists and it was added. So... I also have player on here, which is good. And players should have their controller set to 8, which is correct. So it's almost like... it's like the controller never got added. I call the same code twice in a row. Why would it make a difference? I don't understand. Like the frame stopped existing. Oh. Oh. I need to reset the frame. I'm actually just gonna do this here because it's too crazy otherwise. What is controller.frame equals null? Yeah. All right. Because I'm going to be ripping controllers entirely out of the code base pretty soon, and it's going to be all meta entities. Like, that'll probably happen maybe a week from now or something. Like, controllers are going to go away, so I don't care about this code at all. It's completely disposable to me. Because controllers are just, they don't exist. They're dumb. I'm going to add this, though. I'm going to add this up here, though. I'm going to say controller.frame. Alright, so now we're going to head up here. The stuff still blew up. Why? I want to know what the controller is. Alright, cool. So then what's the problem? There is a world for this. Then why aren't there any ghosts? This legit, like, what on earth? Why would this not work? This has got to be something to do with the... Alright. Alright, I'm gonna be able to tell if this is the right one. Because... Columns 80. Yeah. No, this is the right one. So it did load the map and it did send stuff out, but for some reason it couldn't get the ghost. What on earth? Okay. Let me see the code for this. Oh, it did throw a whole bunch of errors, but it also teleported me. So... Alright, I still want to... This is going to happen... I don't want to do this every single time. Alright, cool. Let's just head up towards this. Alright, so jump. Jump. Jump, 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 jump. So what exactly... I mean, it makes sense that there would be a frame where there's not ghosts. I just don't understand why I wouldn't have gotten bitten by that bug before. Like, it makes sense that on the first frame there wouldn't be a ghost. Like, it totally makes sense. It 100% makes sense to me. But why wasn't it breaking before? Alright, still trying to call ghost.serialize. What? It's like it's not getting compiled. What? Oh. Well, that loaded another level. It's not fantastic, but probably good enough to start playing with some stuff. Like, I'd wanna stop the level, send an event, and like wait for you to like jump to the next area or start or something. Like, this is gonna wanna be a changed system. But we're doing iteration, so I'm gonna actually mark a couple of things done on the to-do list. So trigger entities are definitely done. Those are fine. Level transitions, I'm also going to call done. They could be cleaner, but I'm going to call them done. So we have action prompts, dialogues, and then the second version of doors and the second version of NPCs. And then a whole bunch of cleanup. But that would be enough for me to do a really, really rough version of the first puzzle in the game. So let's think a little bit about how action prompts want to work. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with triggers. I'm pretty sure action prompts want to, at least a little bit, like have this notion of triggers. So it's whiteboarding time. What I want is I want you to be able to like walk up to a door. And I want like a little icon to pop up on the screen that's like press this key to do a thing. So if you walk up to a person, it should be like A or something. It should be like basically you can interact with this. It should basically allow you to say you can interact with this thing. Which means that there's got to be like a queue of interactions, basically. Or an array, I guess. Because every one of those is going to have a different key, basically. Because if you walk up to two people at the same time, they obviously can't both give you the same key. They have to they have to give you different keys. The only reason I'm thinking, yeah, so that makes sense. The only reason I'm thinking that there's a queue or whatever is, what if two people are standing next to each other and you walk up to one of them? Does it end up being something where it's like, does it end up being something that's kind of annoying though, right? Like, what I would want in that case is to possibly give you the ability to like tab through them or something. That's the only thing that I would want. Otherwise, I would say whichever one you're in the area to. Yeah, I can kind of see it. Like, I'm definitely gonna want different keys at certain points to like prompt you for stuff. But like, if there's just an action button or something, it makes sense for that to be constant. You're right. Yeah. I don't want it to be like, Pokemon rules are you literally have to be facing the thing. And I'm going for like a more general, because this will be the same key for like picking an object up off the ground or something. So if you run into a room and you want to grab a gun off the floor or something, you should be able to just run past it and like tap a key as you're running past it and grab it. You shouldn't have to like go up to it and select it. It should be like, you should be able to like do this action stuff very quickly, because the other thing that happens is the game doesn't pause while you're interacting with things. So like, if you're talking with someone, the game still moves in the background while you're doing that, because it's not super important right now, but it's going to be really important for multiplayer. Like, you cannot pause the game when someone starts interacting with stuff. Yeah, I like that. So you're next to this thing, it's gonna pop up, it's either gonna highlight the thing, or it should pop up a tooltip, basically, that just says, like, here's the key that you press to interact with it. Well, the problem with player facing is, you could be very much in a case where, like, okay, here's a person, and you're right here, and you're facing both of them. Well, it wouldn't be a big tooltip. Like, what I've drawn right up here is literally what it would be. It would literally be a thing that pops up next to them that just has a key button. Like, it would be about the size of one tile. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is try it both ways, and we'll see what works. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna highlight the sprite for right now because that's easier. Like, the way that I'm gonna show this tooltip right now is I'm gonna change the color of the sprite, because right now the sprites are just boxes, right? So, that's one line of code for me to do. So that's definitely what's gonna happen right now. For like the long-term interface, I'm just gonna code it both ways and put up like a preference or something and see what works. Giving you the ability to maybe like tab through interactable objects or like go off of whatever the closest one is probably the right way to handle that. So from a system though, what that means is that if an object is broadcasting that it can interact, it should basically be broadcasting who it wants to interact with. Tab targeting is not great. It does seem to conflict a little bit with... It does seem to conflict a little bit with the other stuff that I'm doing. And this is maybe something that I don't even need to worry about right now. But like facing... Going off of who you're facing is also going to be problematic. I guess going off of who you're literally closest to is probably the way to do it. It would mean that like inside the trigger stuff, I would need to do a distance formula or something, or I'd need to have something. I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but probably distance then is the right way to do it. Well, this won't, but again, this won't just be for talking to. This will be for, like, opening doors. This will be for picking things up off the ground. This will be with, like... Yeah. Yeah, I'll think about it. It's not an issue right now, but, like, it's... The worry I have with facing is that, like, you might be facing two things at the same time. And I guess you just pick one at random then. But, like, I mean, like, triggers might even overlap. I don't know. It's... For right now, I'm not going to worry about this, because it's never going to actually be an issue. And instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on the basic version, which is highlight a sprite or whatever. What that means is... Yeah. Oh, you mean distance plus facing. Like, if you're facing someone, but somebody behind you is closer. Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds intuitive. Yeah, it makes sense. So first of all, we're going to have an interactable. And that's going to say basically who I'm willing to interact with. And it is one person at a time, I feel like. Because the game doesn't stop when you interact with things. So that means that it's going to be not just I'm willing to interact with you, but more to the point of who am I actively interacting with right now. So we would say, like, active would have a target. When the player hits that collision, what they want is to basically, like, send out something on the data that says, like, hey, you could interact with this object. Is that something that's attached to the player? Probably not. So we've got a player interactable. Like, both of them are basically going to want to hold references towards each other. Until they get away from each other or something. Or until the object says, like, I'm not willing to interact with you or something like that. And probably the player doesn't even want to... Like, when the player hits a trigger, it does actually trigger something on that player. I don't think that events get forwarded between entities. I think that's something that I was thinking about. But I don't think it actually happens right now. Let me take a really, really quick look at code. Because I don't think that entities share events with each other. But I think I wanted them to. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe they do. Like, maybe I wanted that so much that I actually did it. I can find out. That would be something that happens inside World. So inside of update, we have a whole bunch of events. We wholesale forward events. We wholesale forward events to the world. Like, I could basically say each entity's function entity I could basically forward the exact same thing. The problem is knowing the source. Let's try this and see what happens. I want to see what happens if I try to do this. If I say entity emit. No, this is going to cause an infinite loop. I would need like an internal event system or something, because I'll then catch that emission and re-forward it or something. Let me take a look at how entities work again. So they have an emitter that they push out, but they don't ever actually, like... That's really just for them to communicate upwards. Entities probably want an internal event emitter. Probably. Because, like, otherwise they need to do things like loop over the world. Like, event-based stuff is going to be easier. What I'm kind of thinking is, in terms of a structure, it's like... What I'm kind of thinking is like, okay, I walk up to an object with a trigger. So let's say I've got a door. And it's got a trigger around it, and I hit that trigger. The door is going to detect the trigger, and the door is going to have a reference to me, and it's basically going to say, hey, I am open to interact with you. Well, if it has a reference to me, and it does, then I don't actually need an event system. The door basically needs to signal to me. It needs to player, I'm willing to interact. Here are the keys. So if there's multiple options, that you have, like closing a door or locking or like whatever, I don't know. And internally, the door then sets like, hey, so basically at that point, the door is going to say, cool. So the player now has a reference to the door because the door basically said, hey, I'm available for interactions. Now, if the player, like, tries to interact with the door, like, once the player leaves the trigger, because I already also track that, once the player leaves the trigger, then the door basically withdraws its invitation. It basically says, like, hey, you can't actually interact with me anymore. Which kind of makes sense. And it's basically just giving the player a list of options, basically. Which is a pretty open system. The player can, like, send a key at that point. The player can be like, oh, okay, I'm going to interact and I'm going to send you this key. And the player will have access to all of the data and all of the information that it needs to interact with it. That sounds good to me. That sounds reasonable. That actually sounds kind of straightforward. Like, yeah, there's ways to make it nicer, particularly around, like, displaying stuff or whatever, but, like, it's basically just, like, code up a system to detect interactions. Contact anything that gets inside your trigger thing, give them a list of methods they can call or whatever. So player needs, like, a contact method. Something to basically say, like, hey, here's an interaction that you have. Past that, it's kind of straightforward. Okay, so let's, as long as I'm on this road and as long as this looks okay, then what does dialogue look like? That would basically be, it would be the exact same system, but it would be the entity now says, like, here is text or something. It opens up, like, some kind of, like, the interactions that you're trading back and forth at that point are basically saying, like, hey, send this text. Hey, send this text. Send this text. Send this text. Send this text. And maybe I want, like, some sort of framework around that to say, like, this is a conversation. Because that seems completely reasonable to say, like, that, like, here's a conversation object or something that maybe you pass back and forth. Yeah, that seems completely reasonable. And if that was the case, if that worked, that would be a huge section. That would be basically action prompts look reasonable. Dialogue needs to show up on the screen, but that's fine. That's just another interface. That's quick to do, actually, I think, to make dialogue show up. Does advancing dialogue use the same button as, like, this is so easy to change later if it's wrong. Like, I'm not sure if advancing dialogue would use the same button as interacting with something. It's so easy to change later, or to have, like, a back out button. My only thought is that you should be able to interact with other things while you're talking to someone. But, like, this is a trivial thing to change later. I'm actually not sure. Like, from a gameplay perspective, why would that be important? I'm thinking, like, well, real time, you want to be able to do everything. But in multiplayer, I'm planning on just doing, like, global chat, I assume. I don't think you're going to need to be next to someone to chat with them in multiplayer. Because these are small servers. You're only going to have, like, 4 or 5 people on a server at a time, like, max. So I'm going to make a, Yeah, it's Pokemon style talking to NPCs. And the question is there a reason why in the middle of a level you would want to be talking to an NPC and also have the freedom to, like, run behind them and grab something? And it's hard for me to think of a gameplay situation where that would be super important to do, where you couldn't, like, click a second button to end a conversation. It's hard for me to think of a system where, like, you would be in the middle of talking to someone and you really wouldn't want to end the conversation, but you also would really want to do something else very quickly. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to put you into that situation. Well, but if you're going to sneak behind an NPC, you're not going to be talking to them at the same time, right? Like guards aren't going to talk to you. They're just going to shoot you. Yeah, like if you walk up to a guard and you're like, "Hey, I want to tell you something." They're going to be like, "No. I'm just going to shoot you now." They're not going to talk to you. Like if they talk to you, they'll bring up some kind of prompt or something after the fact. That's just like, "Ha, I shot you." I think it's fine to have a separate button for backing out of a conversation. And the same one. And again, like, let's say that I test it and I have like people putting like quips or something up on the screen or something, and it tracks really well, but it's annoying. Let's say that happens in the future, then like I can fix that problem. I'll just switch out the command for advancing a dialogue and I'll change it to a different command. Like that, if I code it semi-competently, that should only be 1 or 2 lines of code to swap. Probably not super long. Some of them might be longer. I don't know. I mean, short answer. I don't actually know. Oh yeah. Remappable. So, like, this is all web based because, and part of the reason for that is I plan to launch simultaneously with touch-friendly interface, controller-friendly interface, and keyboard-friendly interface. And if you come up with some other interface that you want to support in the future, it's web-based, so you just write like a wrapper or something and you stick it in as an extension. This is gonna be customizable. Like the whole point of separating stuff out is that once the game is launched, you should be able to, in theory at least, I don't know exactly literally how this is going to work, but you should be able, in theory, to literally throw away my front end and completely build your own if you wanted to. And it would be fine. Which is important because, like, maybe at some time I want to do, like, accessibility controls or something. I'm thinking about, like, is there a voice-only interface if you're blind, or, like, can I have like shortcuts or mapping for those people or something? I don't know. It's not like the primary concern I'm worried about, but like if it doesn't work, like if you can't remap keys or do anything like that, then I've done something seriously wrong with the infrastructure at that point, because you basically get that stuff for free on the web. So like, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? Speaking of which, like, how does my current input class work? Probably right now is not rebindable, but like that's not a structural problem that it's not rebindable. It's that I didn't put in like the one constant or something to say that it should be rebindable. No, you will be able to customize the heck out of the interface. It's gonna be like responsive, so if you resize the window, like, you'll be able to basically play the game half screen. You'll be able to do all of this stuff. It's fine. Okay, yeah. So it's not... So I don't have everything as rebindable as it should be, in the sense that I don't have touch controls. But, yeah, you can basically... I will basically give you a config file and an interface in game to basically say, like, type a key... And that will be the key for arrow left, arrow right, arrow up, arrow down, or something. Which means that basically inside... Oh, I don't actually have the code up, so you can't see that. Well, if you're playing on a phone, you do. If you're playing on a phone, you want multi-touch. And I would like, in theory, to have cross-platform enabled controls. I don't know how it's gonna work out with touch stuff, but you don't need to be like super precise. I don't know, like when I talk deathmatch, like I don't actually know if I'm gonna have stuff like aiming in the game. It might literally be that if someone is in the same room as you and you want to shoot them, you literally just click on them and they die. it comes down to a question of like, does that kind of extra twitch stuff help the gameplay, or is it just a bunch of crap that the player needs to go through for no reason? And I was originally under the impression that like, of course it helps the gameplay, of course it's great, whatever. But then I started thinking about the blind accessible controls. And I started like coming up with these other thoughts that like, well, it's not a big deal if you're blind and I let you tab to someone and shoot them. Like, that's not a big deal. Or just like tell you someone's there. Well, yeah, you won't be able to do that. What I'm thinking is that the player will need to be in the same room as you. Basically the feel that I'm thinking is that like, if somebody has a gun and they can see you, they should be able to like, it should not be a question of whether they can like aim their mouse at you is kind of what I'm thinking. It should be a question of like, if you are within shooting range, because in multiplayer, rooms that you're not in, you won't be able to see into. Because remember that like the other thing that's happening is glitches. So like if a player walks past you, and something different happens that like causes a glitch or something, like you'll notice that, and that should cause a glitch. That's basically what I'm thinking. It's like instant lock on. Like if someone's close enough to you that you can shoot them, and if someone's in a different room than you, you really shouldn't be able to even interact or shoot with them or even like acknowledge them in any way. Because like it's not, that doesn't just mess with the shooting controls, that messes with actual time travel controls, which are the more important part than the shooting controls. But yeah, I started from this perspective of like, well, of course you want to like rotate around and have like twin stick shooting or whatever. And then as I started to like fill out the started to think more about the accessibility controls, there was this moment when I was like, well, why am I making a game that's more convenient for blind people to play than sighted people? Like if I've decided that this is not an element that's so important that like I would force even a blind person to do it, like, am I kind of not just like punishing sighted players and saying like, oh, like, no, you don't get to take advantage of lock on because I don't know why, because death matches usually have twin stick controls. Like I want it to feel very, very dangerous if you're next to someone. I want it to like, if you walk up to someone, like I don't want you to be like, I'm gonna loop around behind this person and like swing around and they won't be able to shoot me in time. It should be like if this person can see me, they can shoot me. Turn off lock on a game setting. Yeah, that kind of stuff. But like, yeah. If it's something that players prefer, then that's like ultimately like everything I'm saying is kind of theoretical, and it's ultimately going to come down to I'll program it one way, play it for a while, and see if it works, and I'll see how players respond to it. But I'm not as married to the idea of like forcing people to do like Twitch controls. I want the game to feel fast-paced, and I suspect... Yeah, I agree with that as well to an extent, but I suspect that, like, the way to make that better is to give you more tools to micromanage your movement, not to give you a clumsy interface. It's sort of like... Movement is an important part of many platformers, but most platformers don't handle, like, QWOP. And, like, that's an over-exaggeration, but, like, I don't think I'm gonna struggle to make stuff feel fast-paced. Because I think there's just gonna be a whole bunch of stuff that you have to think about all the time, and it's gonna get overwhelming. And probably what I want to do... Again, code it and see if it works and see if it's fun, and then go back if it's not fun. But probably what I want to do is just give you a lot of tools to make it very easy for you to do micromanagement. Like, I probably don't want to, like, micromanagement should be, I want to shoot this person behind this other person at this weird angle. Can I do that very quickly and feel clever about it? Or like, can I punish someone extremely quickly when they make a mistake? I don't think micromanagement should be like, oh, I understand how to play the game, but like this person does this weird glitchy thing, and or not glitchy, but like this person like does that and I can't shoot them or something, or they dash or something. And part of it is also the constraint that like if two people are in the same room, and you violate causality, like that'll cause a glitch. Like I think that too might be an interesting mechanic. I don't know. Essentially, like I just need to program stuff and try it and see if it works. Like it's very low risk. I have ideas about this stuff, but like I'm not trying to nail it down 100% right now, because even if I did, I might build the game and play test it with people, and they might say like, "Oh, it's actually frustrating to do this." So, like it's kind of low risk. Like once I get to that point, I can kind of try everything and then see what works. And then just pick whatever the best solution is out of the top. And that's one of the advantages of going with the iterative approach and going with like getting to a minimum viable build means that like every time you make a change, you can literally just show it to people and see if they like it or not. Anyway, I'm gonna make a primary key, and I'm gonna set it to X, I guess. And yeah, these should be remappable. Like I'll basically expose some kind of menu or interface that is basically just a wrap around this enum right here. And that's what I mean, like it's not going to be a problem to make keys remappable, because like here are the keys, they're in an enum. I will iterate over this enum, and I will put a bunch of boxes on the screen, and you can click on one of them and type it in, and then I will put the enum to that string value. It's not particularly difficult to do. Let's make sure that actually input works the way that I think it does, because I haven't worked with input in a while. I'm pretty sure that it does. I'm pretty sure that it does. How am I doing input up here? It's something to the extent... Oh, yeah, it's just input.value. Let's console.log this, though. Console.log inputs. And then let me make sure that this is actually doing what I think it is. Alright, so there's velocity. Surprisingly, that did not trigger... That did not trigger an input. Oh. What? Maybe I'm actually looking at the wrong part of the code. Again, it's been a while since I did inputs. Maybe this may actually just be main.js inside here. Okay, yes, looping over stuff. So there should be a default case in here. Client.emit, input.value. Event.key. Oh yeah. Key event. Okay, there we've got it. And now I will add primary, and we will call this X, and secondary, and we will call this Z. All right, so now let me retry this. Why is this still not? Is the X and Z key actually not? I think they use key codes for this, don't they? I think they use key codes. Why? Car codes. What are they? What are the car codes? Yes, they do. What is the X key? It's 88, and the Z key is 90. All right. So why? Oh, this is opposite. Well, okay, never mind. Maybe my structure is horrible. But I can fix that. I can make it so it's not horrible anymore. I can make it so it's not like keyed to the... Yeah, that's stupid. Alright, let me refresh this one more time. What on earth? This input system is not like... Alright, console.log for me what the event.key is, because I don't know what JavaScript is doing with this. I have no idea what it's doing here. It's doing nothing. It's not console.logging it. What? What on earth? Huh. Am I crazy? Window.add event listener, key down. Console.log the key. Or is this just, is this not getting compiled right now? No, it is. It's writing, it wrote out public src main.js. Alright. That is so weird. I had to compile that like twice before it would actually take. Okay, so it is actually using, whatever. It is actually using the actual key. Fine. I can handle this. X is primary. Y is secondary. My goodness. It's not actually all that complicated. Yes, okay, so there's primary. And Y is secondary, but it should be... it should be Z. Alright. So input does work not the way that I thought it does, but like halfway decently. Have I committed this in a while? I want to commit this code again. I'm not doing a great job of committing regularly in chunks. Not doing a good job of committing my code in chunks. Alright, so this is feet. Level loading works. What else? Level loading works. What else did I do other than level loading? Is it just level loading? I guess. Huh. Alright, so let me think about this. What do I want to... How do I actually want to move forward on this now? I kind of know what I'm going to do for the dialogue stuff. I kind of know what I'm going to do on the dialogue stuff. I know how action prompts are going to work. It really does look kind of straightforward. I want to push a little bit farther. I'm a little bit tired out at this point. But I want to push a little bit farther for a couple more minutes. Just so that like I have enough of this written down that if I come back to it later, I'm not gonna forget it and like have to redo everything from scratch. Like I want to push a little ways past this wall, and then I'll stop and I'll go take a shower and I'll come back later on in the day. What time is it right now? It's 6:58. Ah, it's not bad at all. It's early. Early. Well, let's go a little bit farther, and then I'll cut the stream off for maybe like an hour or two and come back. Just to give like a little bit of time for me to like settle and think about some of this stuff. But first, let me write down the stuff that I did think about. In order for that to work, inside an entity like a door, we need basically some kind of system to say, okay, here is an action. Like, here is an action I provide. And that would basically happen on trigger.start and on trigger.stop. It would be something like data.trigger.on. And I could even be super specific about it for right now. I could say that, like, if entity.id does not equal player. Like, I'm okay with being that specific right now, with literally saying, like, I'm only going to interact with the player. The point being, you could have preconditions for interaction. Including stuff like, if you're walking up to a door and you don't have a key to open that door, maybe I don't even, like, give you an interact prompt. Or maybe I give you an interact prompt and it's like, you don't have the door or whatever. Huh. Okay, so I did actually get a failed pipeline, which is good, because I pushed a bunch of code incompletely the last time that I pushed a build. So this is from an hour ago that I got a failed pipeline, which is perfect. That's correct. That's correct. Otherwise, I want to trigger something on the entity or something. So this would basically be, I would have a... I would, inside the player, I already have a give method, which would basically be put something in my inventory. I could have something that would either be called, like, interact. And this would basically give me the entity, and it would also give me, like, a list of interactions. I don't know what I don't know what this would be called. It would be like give interactions, and there would be another one that's like remove interaction. And then inside my data model, I would have something like data.interactions. And it would be something like entity.id equals list of interactions. And this would be like blah. Blah. How would I add and remove stuff from there quickly? Set stuff to null. That's good enough. So it would be something like, it would say like, if this.data.interactions entity.id this.data.interactions equals boom. This would be like this dot data dot interactions entity dot id equals interactions. Be something like that. Like, obviously that's kind of messy, and like I wouldn't want to use these names, and I would want something like more interesting. But it'd be kind of like that. And ideally, possibly, like, what I want is some kind of like interactable mix-in or something. Like, this seems like a good use case for a mix-in, because there's gonna be a lot of objects that want to be able to interact with the player, and they might want to like trigger different actions or something. But the just navigating the act of like talking to the player and saying like, hey, I'm a door, you can open me, or you can't open me, or you can lock me, or you can do whatever. Just navigating those steps are I think that I will want to reuse that code. I don't think I'm gonna want to code that from scratch every time. I think that's a very good case to make for a mix-in. Jump back to the whiteboard for a second. Make sure that I'm okay with every single part of this. So I guess I've got a way to trigger an interaction to basically let the player know about it. And the point of that is that if the player then gets an input, then what the player needs to be able to do is say, I'm already doing movement based off of this. I'm already checking for an inputs.reset. Oh, I didn't realize I still had an inputs reset. I should keep that in mind. Because manual resetting of inputs is something that like I will probably... Oh, that is actually a mandatory part of this puzzle. I forgot about that. So like this to-do list needs to be revised, actually. This to-do list, the inventory stuff that I have down here, that actually needs to come up. Right next to the NPC. Because I will need to 100%. I will need to before this puzzle is playable. I will need a way to give you a gun and let you shoot yourself. And if I don't have that, then the puzzle will not be completable. It also just like won't be a puzzle. Like you need a way to manually reset. So inventory has to happen 100%. Which complicates things a little bit, but not that much, because everything else has kind of gone so well. And I think that action prompts and dialogues and doors and NPCs are actually going to be really, really quick to do. So it complicates things a little bit, but like not that much. This has kind of been, thus far, an incredibly encouraging session. Anyway, so if I get in interactions, so if I have inputs dot primary or if inputs.primary, yeah, like these if statements, like you'd want to clean this up and you want to have a mix in and you want to have all this great stuff, but like basically it would just be like if inputs.primary and I have an interactions Probably. Is that what you're looking at? Home Dan Shumway code reset hard SRC no modules entities. You've done it. You've hacked into what directory my code is stored in. I can even go a step farther. Just for a brief second. Just a brief second. Boom. All of my code directories. All of the code across my entire computer. Yeah, I don't keep my directories very secret. I am on Ubuntu for now. The short version of this is Ubuntu is a really like straightforward Linux distribution to use, and if you just want like a standard computer, Ubuntu is great. At the point I am right now, where I'm doing like serious work on my computer and want low-level things, I would love to switch to Arch and set up a tiled window manager and like simplify things. Like Ubuntu is vastly superior to Windows, but it's still like a bundled distribution, and there's still things on my computer that like I don't know what they are and I didn't set them up. And I would love to have like an Arch setup or something where literally everything on my computer is what is like something that I manually installed. I think that would be like way more productive. I hate debugging things on my computer and debugging issues on my computer that like because somebody configured something somewhere in like a weird directory someplace. Like I hate that so much. Like I feel like if I'm using a computer as a professional tool, then I need it to like act like a professional tool, and it needs to like reveal its internals to me. But like I put up with it because A, I don't have the time to switch right now, and B, like Ubuntu is just kind of good enough. There's a difference between ideal and not ideal. Like it's the same thing. I'm using Spacemacs right now as an editor. My editor setup could be like way better. But like it's good enough right now with like just kind of most of the defaults that they have. So I just don't take the time to fix it. It's quite possible that as I get farther along in development on this game, like at some point I'll want to. There's some interesting stuff I've looked into with like containerization and stuff, because sometimes I set things up on my computer or I want to like experiment with the setup, and then it's a pain to revert it afterwards. But like, yep. But no, I am on Linux, and I am a little bit opinionated about it. I would not tell you this in the like if you had talked to me maybe like 2.5 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have told you this. But like at this point, because I've used Windows 10 for other things, and because I've seen what Apple is doing with their dev environments and how like frustrating, like at this point I feel like it's not a terrible idea to just run Linux for everything. Like I'm getting a bit more opinionated on that the more time that I spend in like professional development where I have complete control of the machine. It's like I don't know why if you were a developer you would put up with another OS. I mean, if you're a game developer, I sort of get it. Yeah, Debian would also be good. Basically, the only thing with Ubuntu that I dislike is, I mean, the same reason why it exists in the first place is because it's a bundled distro and there are other people making decisions, which is like a really good thing for most people. And back when I was only using my computer casually, that was a great thing for me. But now, like Debian stable would maybe not even be a bad idea, because I'm more used to a Debian environment than I am to a Arch environment. So like that's not like a terrible idea either. Like I have the same, I would say the same thing about like if I'm running Manjaro on another distro and I have the exact same complaints, which is like it's pretty good, it's fine, like it's better than Windows and I would recommend it to most people, but it still comes bundled with like occasionally I'll open up the process manager and I'll be like, I don't know what this process is. And I hate that feeling. I hate not knowing what the process is on a computer. But it's a minor complaint. Like, the short answer is, like, any Linux distro is usually fine. They all have the advantage that they're not Windows or Mac, which is there's a lot of things I don't like about Linux, but like at least I can use it and I can actually get work done. Like at least my computer doesn't randomly decide to shut down or like force me to install updates randomly in the middle of a workday or yeah. Anyway, that's my rant about Linux, which is that like you could probably build a better operating system if you wanted to, but like Linux seems to be the only operating system that I can find that actually treats me like an adult. And I really need, like, if I'm doing professional development with a tool set, I need it to treat me like an adult. That's my rant on Linux. Anyway, before I forget about everything that I was working on, did this fail again? No, this was older. This failed from early. All right. It's also at the point, I guess, to expand on that rant a little bit more, it's also at the point where, like, I generally also recommend Linux for just, like... It used to be that I only recommended Linux for power users, and now it's kind of like, well, I recommend something like Arch or Debian. There's a lot of things that get me about Windows. That could be a long conversation. I run Windows on a couple of devices, or at least I did for a while, just because like some software was only available there and I couldn't get it running on Wine and the driver support. Like there is some stuff that Windows does well. And also because like I do game development and that's like the one instance where I feel like it would make sense to work on Windows. Because 99% of your install base is on Windows, or not that much, but you know what I mean. There's a whole bunch of stuff that makes me upset about Windows. I mean, the obvious one is updates. Like, the obvious one is the fact that Windows does automatic updates for you. And it doesn't give you details about what it's updating. Like, if I'm getting an update on Ubuntu, I will check to see what packages are getting pulled down. And if it's a package that I know that's super critical, that like, then I'll wait for a weekend or something to update it. I can't do that on Windows. I can't even... the most recent thing that they're doing on Windows now is that they're trying to like do AI-driven restarts, which is like it will try to predict when you're not using your computer, which is such a terrible idea. Like, it's so ridiculously bad. There's so many decisions. Like, I feel like the people that are building Windows, like, I don't even know if they're using it. Like, I don't understand how anyone would think that it's a good idea to have something auto update in the background. Yeah, it's at that point where like so many things are annoying that like if I have enough, I don't know if I would universally recommend it, but like I almost just blanket recommend everyone to go to Ubuntu or Debian or Manjaro, like any of them. Ubuntu seems to be the one. Canonical seems to care more about user experience than a lot of other, like average user experience. Canonical seems to care more about, but like it's kind of at the point where like Yeah. Well, it doesn't... Depends on what you mean by worry, right? Because, like... They're not really doing anything complicated. Like, when they say that they're doing AI to handle this, what they really mean is that they're going to have, like, a table someplace that runs, like, a couple of statistical functions on, like, when you moved your mouse around or something. Like, that's what it's going to boil down to. It's not going to be very complicated. And because it's not going to be very complicated, it's also not going to work very well. I feel like we had this promise for computers that was like, computers are great because they're very, very exact. And they do everything that you tell them to, and they're predictable. Like, computers are the ultimate tool. And then along the way, like, someone was like, well, what if the AI stuff, like, what if we could get computers to act more like humans? And, like, that doesn't existentially bother me, but it feels like, what do you think the point was of, like, what was the point of a device that has buttons on it that I can press individual buttons? Like, the whole point was to be more precise. So now interacting with stuff, Chrome goes down this route all the time. They try to do, like, user metrics for everything. Google, they do this with, like, YouTube as well. Like, trying to get a recommendation engine to work on YouTube is like trying to train a cat. And if I wanted to train a cat, I would go get a cat, and I would like it a lot more than I like. Like, I don't feel an emotional interaction to my computer. It's not like... I mentioned this back when the Windows thing came out. I mentioned this someplace, I think on, like, Twitter or something. But it's like somebody at Microsoft played The Last Guardian, and they were like, what if my computer was The Last Guardian? And I had to ask it to do everything 5 times in a row. And it was also, like, it cared very much that I stayed on a specific schedule. And if I, like, left my house for the weekend, my computer would freak out and pee on the rug or something. Like, why are we going in that direction for anything? Like, it seems so backwards to me. It seems incredibly backwards to me that would be how computers work. Natural language interpretation is another one of these. Like, to a certain extent, natural language interpretation makes sense, but it is difficult for me to think of many systems that actually do NLP well. Even when you talk about stuff like Google Home or Alexa or whatever, there are still certain keywords that they zero in on. And I've seen people use those systems, and you don't speak naturally. You figure out what the commands are, and you sort of intuit it out, and you learn to speak a certain way. So the NLP systems don't really save you anything. Because, like, there are a lot of NLP systems out there, and you still have to ask them what the commands are. You still have to get a list of commands and functionality. So all that it really does is it adds this extra unintuitive layer on top of the commands that you already have to memorize. Like, if it was perfect NLP, then I could understand it. Then it would be like, well, then I don't need to learn any commands. But you still need to learn the commands, so why not make the commands simpler and have... I need to stop ranting about this stuff and finish programming trigger systems. Otherwise I won't get this game done before the end of the weekend. So how is this gonna work? If inputs.primary, I'm gonna say, like, if that.data.interactions, Sort of. There's sort of a deadline on this. I've been working on Reset Hard, or the name will probably change sometime soonish. But I've been working on this for about 3 or 4 months now, I guess. So it's still extremely early development, and you can see like the debug stuff, like super ridiculously early. Like there's not like just a bunch of collision detection and stuff happening here. But I would very much like to have playable puzzles by the end of this weekend, because I want to do polish and redo all of the sprites and stuff next week and add some animations. And next Saturday there is a hackathon where, like, when I go to the hackathon, I want people to be able to sit down and play the game while I'm working on it. And then a week after that, I am demoing prototypes to people. So, like, none of these are strict deadlines, but they're strict deadlines in the sense that, like, if the game's not done by then, I lose out on a bunch of playtesting potential. They're sort of pseudo deadlines. Like, I suppose I could miss them, but it would be pretty bad. It would be pretty bad if the game wasn't playable by in a semi-decent state by then. A big goal with Reset Hard for me is to have the game be very iterative, and to have... I don't want to build the game and then show it to people. I want the game to be just playable enough that people can get an idea for it. And then I want to iterate and try different designs. Because it's an extremely, like, procedural... I mean, not procedural, but, like, it's an extremely, like, systematic game. So I need to have, like, a ton of input into, like, which parts of the systems are fun and which parts aren't. And I will rip out most of the code that I'm writing right now. This is just... I want to have enough of it, of this coded that, like, I know what's going on. And then later on, I'll clean it up and make it look good and fix everything else. So, I guess I just attach a function here or something. The problem is that, like, do I have a method signature for that? Because if I... No, I probably should just have a callback, right? Because the door can check all of this stuff, right? I can say player.give interactions that I can say entity give interactions, and I will give them a reference to myself, and I will give them an interaction and does primary unlock me or something, which I can basically just say that dot data dot or no, I can just say that dot unlock or open, I guess. And obviously I would want to check to see if the player has the correct key. Ah, I don't have my code thing up. Blah. I really need to set up, I really need to set up OBS to just, like, auto change when I change windows. I'm sure I'm 100% certain that there's a way to do that. Like, I know that there is. But it would take time to do it. And I just haven't been motivated enough to do that. This.data.locked equals false. Data collision disable equals true. So, like, now there's a way to open the door. And we could even give a close method, and we could say this.data.locked was true. So now, in theory, anybody could open or lock the door. But like, I would actually tie that into a key. I would actually want to tie that into like checking to see if you have the proper key. Yeah, I would just literally say interaction.primary over here. And that kind of, like, that's kind of the entire system. Now I do want this to be, well, I don't know. Like, I wanted to make this into a mix-in and be like, well, if you can interact with something, maybe there's a special system that you call into to call this. But it looks like the code to handle this is pretty short. Like, the only other thing would be function entity if entity.id does not equal player. We return. So I have I should have a list underneath the overview. And there's a more detailed list on the Discord. But the short version is, let me pull it up actually so I can see. The short version is the overview. For servers and local player, I'm using Node.js and JavaScript. Because right now, for the initial release, I'm only focusing on single player. Everything is bundled into a web version at the end of it. So I can just run demos off of the web, which is super, super useful. Because it means that, like, I can set up a server or something at an event, and I don't need to bring, like, 5 computers. People can just pull out their phones and play. The stuff I'm using for assets is I am using Aseprite for pixel art, which I don't have a view to pull up, and I am using Tiled as a map editor. Tiled is nice. I like Tiled a lot. It's basically a huge time save because it would take me a long time to build a map editor. And not to say that I wouldn't ever want to, but it would take me a long time. And I don't really have the time to do it. And I don't, not just that I don't have the time, I don't want to do it. Like, I really don't want to spend time building a map editor. That's not particularly an interesting problem for me. Tiled has a whole bunch of really nice things, but the big thing is that it will save as JSON, which means that there's, like, no export step for any of my maps. I save Tiled, and I literally open up the same program inside Node.js. And it even takes it a step farther, and it will save as a JS file, which means I don't even have to write a JSON loader. I just do module.import the JS file. But I really like that it's not export. Like, I don't have a .tiled file and a .json export. I literally just have the exported version. And what that means is that I can do stuff like, oh, I don't have Tiled up on the screen. I'm an idiot. But what that means is that I can do, like, if I want to change something, if I want to move the player so they're inside the reception desk, I just move this over and I hit save. And that has basically, that by now that should have compiled in the background. So now if I F5 this, now I'm in the reception desk. Which makes working with maps way faster. Before I was using Tiled, I was literally just, like, manually coding everything. Which works, but it means that you waste a bunch of time iterating over arrays and, like, figuring out your map stuff. Like, the fact that I can in Tiled, like, the fact that I could be like, okay, the floor is now going to be all this sprite, and I could grab a box and I could be like, boom. That's a big deal that I can do that. It also helps a bit with scripting as well, because like if I go to the top door here, and maybe this is a bad example because I haven't actually coded this stuff to actually show it off. But if I go up to the top door here, I can basically just add whatever properties I want to it. So I have a level loader that then takes in these properties and puts them off. So the hope is that for the most part, I can design a level entirely inside here. But for things that like that's not the case, I can then like link it to an external JavaScript file or something and pull stuff in there. That's the majority of it. I don't have like a sound editor or anything yet because I haven't started working in that area yet. Aseprite is also a program that I highly recommend if you're doing pixel art. Aseprite is great. It's not open source, which is a shame. Tiled is open source, which is really nice. But Aseprite is source available, which is about the next best thing that you can get. So it doesn't, you can't just, you can't redistribute the source, but you still have access to it, and you're still allowed to edit it and recompile it on your own program, and all of the source is actually just up on GitHub. So it's not as good as it could be, but it's like as close to perfect as I could get it to be, while also still being a decent program to work with. It helps too that I haven't messed around with it, but the file format for Aseprite is also heavily documented, which would also be useful in the future if I ever wanted to like manually manipulate files or import stuff or compile it myself. This should be kind of working. Like, there's no way to... Let's do entity.remove interaction. That. And get rid of these trigger.starts or something. And I don't see why this should work. This seems actually, I doubt that this will work, but I'm gonna try it and see what happens. If I reload this and I go up to this entity. Okay, something broke, so that's progress. Entity is undefined. Really? Really? I could have sworn that was working a little while ago. Let me take a look at the collision code for this. Cool. Check triggers. I don't want to check triggers. I want to go to entity. Trigger.emit. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. Box.entity is undefined. Trigger.entity is undefined. Why? The other stuff is... Oh, crud, because I'm dumb. That's why. Because I'm dumb. Collision.js. Entity. Box.entity. Where is it? Good. Forgot that for some weird reason I have made this private. Probably shouldn't be private. Probably like... Yeah, that probably should not actually be private code. Alright, let me try this again. Because that worked better than I thought it was going to work. Okay, so that's still going to emit a trigger.start. Now, if I press primary, okay, nothing happened. But, it didn't crash, so I guess that's something. I want to see exactly where this is failing. Because, like, as much as this code is garbage and I want to rip it out and just rewrite all of it from scratch for this, trigger stuff, and I'll make it into, like, a mixin or something, but, like, it should kind of be working. It feels like it should kind of be working. Data.trigger did get triggered. ID is a method, though, isn't it? Why would I... Alright, whatever. Whatever. I made my decisions, and I'll have to stick with them for now. Hey, how are you? Okay, I looked this up. I did actually look this up, and I still am not 100% sure that I'm going to get it right. Because I couldn't find anyone actually saying it. So I just tried to figure out based on the pronunciation guides that I could find. But I want to say Shavisk. I had this written down, and I actually did look around and try to find this out. Am I close? I need to find like a pronunciation guide that doesn't just write down what they are. Because then I don't, like, I still have to put the letters together at that point, and then I still mess things up. I need it to literally, like, I need like a voice clip, and then it would be fine, like. But the Merriam dictionary doesn't have everything. Let me look at this, because here it is. So S is SH, as in ship. And then the T... but my pronunciation guide didn't say anything about the T. Bat. T as in Batman. Ta. Shta. Shta. I'm just butchering it. I'm sorry. I'll stop butchering it. Well, at some point, I feel like there should be a resource online for, like, I ought to at least be able to find a YouTube video or something with somebody saying different names. But I will, if I can find a pronunciation guide or like an audio clip or something where I know that I'm being accurate, I'll find it. But if I can't, I won't, like, because I know, like, the second most frustrating thing after somebody pronouncing your name wrong is them trying to pronounce it right and utterly failing over and over and over again and just sort of digging the hole deep. So if I can't find an actual guide, then I won't fall back. Okay. Cool. Steffi. All right. I will call you that. So ID should be working. So I'm gonna try this again. ID is not a method. Do I not have an ID? I thought that, like... Why am I doing it this way? Why am I don't even like this interface. Why would I be coding to an interface that I don't even want to keep around? That literally the only reason I have this interface around is because I didn't want to take the time to rip it out. The interface you code to is that you check .data, and it has all of the data properties attached to it in a convenient place. Why am I not using that interface? Why do I do these things to myself? Okay. So that, in theory, should have actually just done something. So that is going to give an interaction. I want to step through this and just see, like... It's the same exact thing over in this other interface, which is ridiculous and shouldn't actually be the case. Entity.id should be entity.data.id. It's not that hard. Like, you have an entity and there's a data object attached to it, and it has all of the properties in one convenient, consistent way, so you don't need to remember like 5 APIs. All right, so this is going to trigger. This is going to add to the list of interactions. Cool. And this should inputs.primary is 1. So this is going to loop over every interactions. It's going to check to see if one is defined, which it is. And then it's going to call it. So all good so far. Yes. Take the dots out for spaces. So basically anywhere where there will be a dot, put a space instead. Because otherwise there's like some auto moderation thing that will replace everything. But other than that, like, I have no objection to pasting links. Huh. So there is an open on here, and it looks like that's going to get called. All right. Will do. Where did this go? All right. Oh, and I also need to turn on JavaScript for this site.
Welcome to Responsive Voice. Voice enable your website or app in Stiffy. Stiffy.
Oh, Stiffy. Stiffy. So the E is more like an I than Stiffy? Like it's not literally Stiffy. Like it's not like a short I, but it's more like an elongated E. Stiffy. Where did that just go?
Stiffy.
Stiffy. Perfect. That's, yeah. Oh my goodness. I literally just needed to hear it. Like, yeah, I'll be able to remember that. Cool. Let me turn music back on. Perfect. Thank you so much. So this is calling that dot open. Why isn't it? Oh. Remember that the pattern is consistent. I am doing good. I've been coding for a while, but that was the plan. And a lot of the stuff that I thought was going to take a while is turning out to be easier and shorter than I thought. So at this point, the to-do list looks like... The to-do list, or let me pull up the code view. This stuff is what we're working on right now, the action prompts, and that will lead into dialogue, which will be a very light sort of framework on top of action prompts, and then doors. Doors and NPCs will just be like two things that use those. And at that point, I need to do inventory stuff, and that will be... I don't want to call it like code complete, but like that would be like I would be able to sit someone down and they would be able to play the first level of the game is the goal. That by like the end of Sunday, the first level of the game will be playable. So it's been like an enormously productive day. You can already do stuff like, let me check to see if I can open a door, because I think I actually just got that working. Not quite. All right. Well, I can't show it, but if I could get past this door, that trigger area would actually load other levels. So there's now like a level loading framework inside Tiled or whatever. And it's actually kind of nice to use. I basically just say like, okay, this trigger area, if anybody touches it, you're gonna load the office level. And that's the entire extent of it. So I'm very happy about that. Doors work for opening and closing. I mean, they don't right now because I'm wiring them into an action interface. And off of that, I'll do dialogue stuff and triggers and an inventory. So it's actually been an extremely productive day. And it's looking, I was a little bit worried going into the weekend. I was like, am I going to be able to get this done by the end of the weekend? Is this going to be like really bad to demo later on? But it's looking more and more like by the end of Sunday, the game will be, in heavy quotation marks, playable. And then next week, I will spend a whole bunch of time basically making those levels. Like, I'll probably redo all of the tiles next week. I'm thinking of moving to an even more abstract sort of style, like possibly even going 16 pixel wide tiles instead of 32. And I'll do stuff like animations. So right now, when you reset, it's instantaneous, but it's probably shouldn't be. There should be a reset for that. And if you loop around, like it should be obvious that when you loop around, a reset happened. So everything looks super promising. Yeah. You should do that then. I think that a huge thing with programming is being able to see output from the stuff that you're doing. Which is not to say that you couldn't use Java. Like the big thing with Unity is that you can instantly start working with stuff. Like if there was a really good Java, and maybe there is, I don't know. If there's a really good Java framework that instantly let you just draw graphics on the screen, that would be, you could do the exact same thing there. But yeah, I think it's a huge thing to be able to, like, when you're starting programming, to have something that you can get excited about and experiment with and like do fun things with. And Unity is great for that, because like some of the really annoying stuff you can just ignore, like collision detection. Collision detection is awful. Nobody wants to do collision detection. And in Unity, like, to a certain extent, you can kind of just ignore it. And you can get to, like, the fun stuff like scripting stuff and building systems. So I think that's a completely great idea. And if you're working with C#, you're kind of... If you ever wanted to move to Java, like, C# and Java are very close to each other. Everything that you're learning in C# will be applicable to Java, and vice versa. So I'm completely on board with that decision. Now, why didn't the door open, though? Yeah. Windows Form is fine. Like, Windows Form is fine. I don't see why this wouldn't open, though. It actually kind of looks like it should be working. So I can come up here and I can press the primary button. And it's gonna call open, right? Why is that not? Oh, okay, that is correct. Well, congrats. That's exciting. That's very exciting. Locked is false. We're setting disabled to true. And it is true. Disabled is true. Did I just pick the wrong... I wonder if I literally just picked the wrong variable name for this. I wonder if it's that simple that I literally just picked the wrong variable name. Let's take a look at the collision code again. No, it's disabled. So, alright, let's step through it. Oh. No, I had it right. I was thinking that maybe I was setting it on the trigger instead of the collision object. But no, it is. It should be disabled. Huh. So I want to check on this. So this is not, like, getting triggered at all. Nothing is disabled. Like, something is disabled, but, like, not in any practical sense. All right, let's take a look at all of the boxes. There are 4 of them. One of them is going to be the player. The map is one, which is great. Wait, the map has a collision box? Oh, it does, but it's not a real, whatever. It's a collision box someplace else. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I started... I think today I started earlier. I started at around, I want to say 1:30 today. I've been trying to sort of move stuff forward a little bit as well. Just pick different times to try and stream, so that it might be easier for people to catch. It is kind of a shame though, like that like so much, because like I'll probably still go for, I mean I don't know how much longer, but like, well, I'll go until I finish a whole bunch of stuff, or until I'm very tired and want to go to sleep. But like, I don't know. What is a good time to stream? Like if you were to pick like what's your ideal stream time? Map has a collision. Here's a door. That's fine. This is a side door. Great. Why is disabled false? It's almost like the disabled stuff gets overridden every frame. But I know that's not the case. I know that that's not the case because when I just set it itself, then it was fine. Like I can prove that that's not the case. Because if I go back into code and I swap out, and instead of giving you the interaction, like sure I'll give you the interaction, but also I'm just gonna call oh never mind. I thought I saw something, but I didn't. Like if I just do this, then that'll work. Because it was working before. If I just do this and I head over. Boom. Like, see, that opens. And it stays open. So, like, clearly it's getting set. But for some reason, when it gets set as a result of an input event, it's like that doesn't count. Why would that be the case? So the interaction is available, and you can take advantage of the interaction whenever you want. It's not a problem. Honestly, the big reason that I stream, like, so part of the reason that I stream is that I hope that people show up that aren't familiar with the game and that they become interested in the game. So like obviously that's one reason. But the other reason is just partially just to like keep myself from maybe getting distracted every once in a while, or to like there are a lot of reasons to stream. So it's honestly not the worst thing in the world if I stream and nobody watches. Like, it's nice if people watch. Like, it's great to have people in chat talking. But it's not... You shouldn't feel like an obligation to do stuff. Honestly, the big thing with that I need to do is I need to I work later in the day on purpose, but I also work like really late in the day, and that's not entirely on purpose. Sometimes that's literally just because like I get on insomnia or something. And my standard response to insomnia is just to program more until I get really tired. So like I started at about like 1:30 today, maybe closer to 1. I think it was closer to 1. I was actually planning on starting earlier than that, but I didn't go to bed last night until like, I want to say like 6:30 a.m. or something like that. And that wasn't the original plan. It was just that I got insomnia, and so I was like, well, I can sit in bed and not fall asleep, or I can program until I'm tired and then I'll fall asleep. So sometimes that's ultimately what it boils down to, and like that's the big reason why I stream later. But I don't know. This should not be... I genuinely don't understand why this is not working. Like, it seems completely obvious to me that it should be working. I guess I just need to... I need to just step through the entire frame and see what's happening. So let's make some conditional breakpoints. Let's say that this is box.data.disabled. So this will be a conditional breakpoint. It keeps me, like, if I'm streaming, I'm honestly a little bit less likely to get discouraged about stuff. It's difficult to describe. Like, it's not just about keeping working on stuff. Like, in some ways it's like preventing tunnel vision more than anything else. Like, it's not so much about like if I don't stream I'll get distracted. It's more like sometimes when I don't stream, I get very, very tunnel vision about stuff, and like I'll spend like 2 hours trying to refactor something, and I'll get like stuck and I'll like bash my head against a wall or something. And sometimes like ultimately I just need to like have some perspective on it and like step back and be like, well, maybe this refactor doesn't even need to happen right now. It's more like the streams force me to keep moving at a pace that I think will be interesting to people. So like a consequence of that is that if I'm spending like an hour on a single problem, that probably means, and like I'm not making any progress on it, then that, like, I'm more likely to notice that if I'm streaming and be like, oh, I need to move on to something else. Like sometimes that's not the case. Like I will occasionally skip streams because I'm just like, well, I need to think about this problem and I can't think about it and talk about it at the same time. But yeah, it's a little bit difficult to describe. So now this is saying that it's... What? Oh, I need to refresh this. Okay, there we go. Okay. So I expected that not to break. I mean, I expected that breakpoint not to trigger. What I want to do is I want to, like, figure out... I want to, like, literally step through the code. Why is that? It's almost like once that trigger is set down, it's constantly triggering. Like, it shouldn't even be an option for that to trigger. Because didn't I call trigger.stop? Something is weird about this. Something is very weird about this. I'm not 100% sure what it is. It must be like... Why do I have tiles? That's really weird. So this is really, really weird. It's like... I've got a whole bunch of extra properties attached to this. I've got a whole bunch of extra properties attached to this. This whole thing is super weird to me. It's like I don't even know why. I don't know why boxes have tiles attached to them, but it doesn't really matter right now. What matters is like A, why this is getting triggered, and also why this is supposedly supposed to be true. But then like as soon as like here's what I want to check. So I have set this dot disabled to true. Like, I know that I did that. And I did it during the update loop. So that should happen even before collisions. So that should be, like, instantaneous. That should be fine. Unless I don't clone things correctly. Unless I'm not cloning things in 2 loops. Let's take a quick look at what the world update code looks like. Because that could be the reason. No, I do this correctly. I do this the right way. I clone entities, and then I attach the events and update them. So it's not like if I call a method on an object, it won't be cloned by then. That'll be fine. Aww. Back to the browser. Back to the debug code. I still want to know, like, okay, so here's a door. And part of data is going to pass in a collision object, and disabled is false. What? Oh my goodness. Should get some sleep. My goodness. That's not good. I will almost certainly, I don't know exactly when, but like I will almost certainly be streaming tomorrow, and it will probably be earlier than this. So less you're worried that you have to tune in or else you'll miss things. I will most likely be streaming tomorrow mid-afternoon, like around on my end at around like probably around 1 or 2. Why on earth is this fault? Well, I don't have to theorize about that. I can go back to the wrapper, and I can literally just check. So what's the data getting passed into this? is disabled false. And also all of this extra data right here, which is weird to me in a lot of ways. Well, okay, who's calling the wrapper? They're calling clone. Yeah, I don't know what my sleep patterns even are right now. It ended up morphing into one of those things where it's like, if I'm motivated, I work, and if I'm not motivated, I sleep. So I haven't been tracking it. I probably should. I stopped tracking sleep patterns because they were so consistent. And now that they're inconsistent, it would not be a bad idea for me to like put an app on my phone or something and start tracking sleep patterns again. Just so that I can sort of like tell in advance that if I haven't gotten a lot of sleep for the past 3 days, like, oh, probably at some point you're gonna fall asleep and it's gonna be later when you wake up. I haven't set it up, but like, I don't know. I 100% have set disabled to false. Or disabled to true. Somebody, something, somewhere. I mean, I'm the only one who's touched this code base, so it is technically speaking my fault. But somebody is setting this back to false, and it's got to be something happening like when the clone happens, right? Entity.data has a collision.data disabled false. No worries. Have a good evening. Thanks. I have no idea. I'm just gonna keep on stepping back in the stack trace because something happened. In fact, not even. Let's get rid of this stuff. What in the world? This code should not be called. I am going to read over my code base carefully. So this doesn't need to be here. Cool. This doesn't need to be here. Trigger.stop. Oh my goodness. First of all, let's see if trigger.stop triggers. Because there's like multiple weird things happening here. And I'm gonna go through them like one by one. First of all, stop got triggered. And primary does actually turn off. Primary does actually turn off. Oh, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. I set the value. Okay, that's step number one. And we're going to fix that right now, is that this needs to be a trigger, not... So this is step number one. So we're going to put this default case down here. Okay. Good. Good. And I already have ignoring stuff set up, so that works as well. Cool. So primary 1, 0, secondary 1, 0. Good. So there's one issue solved. One issue solved. Now, the secondary problem, why is this not, it is calling trigger.stop, so it should also call remove interaction. Which means that I want to take a look at entity.console.log data. I want to take a look at this. This is what I care about. Boom. Boom. What? Oh, it just didn't finish compiling. There we go. Alright, cool. Interactions, side door, primary still exists. Well, that's bug number 2. Which shouldn't be too hard to solve because, like, there's nothing happening here. Like, there's basically nothing going on. Remove interactions. If this.data entity.data ID. Alright, cool. So that's bug number 2 solved, which is that the interaction can go away later. Alright, we call stop. I call stop, and this gives me interactions as a blank object. Alright, cool. That's bug number 2 fixed. Bug number 3. Why, when open is called, does the data collision stuff not get set? And what's the best way to handle that? What is the best way to handle that? The best way to handle that is to... step through the code. No. I know what I want to do. I want to step through the constructor again, and I want to see if it's still attaching things, weird things. Door. There we go. Boom. So I want to take a look at data. We have a trigger object that has tiles attached to it and a whole bunch of stuff. So I want to take a look at the collision code because that's where this is going wrong. That's where this is going wrong. I think. The constructor for the collision code gives you a base. You extend base. Only one of them gets tiles. Only one of them should be getting tiles. But I'm confused. tiles come from? If it's a map, they would need to be like attached someplace and then passed through. Never had that. That wasn't happening before, was it? Is it only for door? Let's take a look at the player. Player also has tiles attached to it. What? I want to look at the initial constructor for player. Collision does not have tiles attached to it. Alright, so this is still something going on with collision code, as far as I'm concerned. But let's 100% make sure. Boom. We have data.collision. Nothing happening there. It's all good. We're going to step into this. Value.type equals tile set. But that doesn't make sense. Okay, whatever. I just want to loop over this. Oh, heck. Is that... No, that's fine. Okay, so I can fix one of these problems. I can fix one of these problems. So that's part of the bug gone right there. Is that I'm no longer mutating the base. But the secondary problem is still gonna be there, which is disabled wasn't getting set. Let's get rid of all of these. What's the best way to track that? Well, I know that if I set disabled myself, it works. And I know if I don't set disabled, let's just step through it and see. Like, at some point, it's got to... I know how I'm gonna do this. Step through it one more time. One more time. So now, this .data.collision.data, which looks perfectly good, and disabled is true. Looks good. Would have to be like I've just finished updating, right? So this entity.data.collision.data. Oh. Oh, this is the player. The player just finished updating. But this still means that entities... So I'm gonna go over to collision.collide entities. And the side door... data.collision.data disabled is false. I'm setting disabled on something that doesn't exist. Entities. Crud, that's actually kind of interesting mechanic. I wonder if I want to play with that. Okay, so I know what the problem is with this. So let's switch back to the whiteboard really quickly. This whole idea of like, when you trigger a thing, I pass you a reference to myself, that only works if that reference isn't changing. For example, if that reference is actually changing at 30 FPS, then what you're changing is the instance in the past. So to prove that, look, I'll let this continue. This is actually kind of a good introduction to metatime, although this is not exactly how metatime is going to work. But to prove this, I'm gonna let this run for a little while. And when I loop back around to the past, at a certain point, that door will unlock. No, it won't actually, because it'll get overwritten. Okay, but in any case, when I press this X, what's actually happening is I'm unlocking the door in the past. Which is not what I want to do. I want to unlock it in the present. And what that means is that it's not enough for me to pass in I don't want to pass out a reference to myself. I want to pass the ID of myself. And I want objects to just have a reference to the world. So that seems like a fairly big win to find that out, even though it means that there's going to be a little bit more restructuring. I am actually going to go and get some water to drink, maybe take a shower or something. I will be back to stream again probably later tonight. I don't know exactly how that'll come out to be. but likely by like maybe 9:30 or something I'll be back on. Probably. Maybe. So thanks for tuning in. Similar setup. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. And I will be back soonish, and if not tonight, I will definitely be back tomorrow. But I kind of feel like I'm probably gonna be back at some point tonight.